So you know the dream, right? Maybe you've had it, that fantasy of walking into your boss's office, quitting your job, finally doing your own thing, starting that business, launching the brand, building something meaningful that is also 1,000% yours. But then reality sets in because the truth is entrepreneurship isn't just about freedom or following your passion. It also includes uncertainty, risk, and that big looming question, what if I fail? And the reality that there are a lot of things that go into being a successful business owner. So if starting a business and making that transition is something that you have been considering, today's conversation is for you. I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. You're listening to Love, Happiness, and Success, where growth-oriented people come to learn how to create amazing relationships, satisfying careers, and an authentically happy life. And today, our extraordinary guest, Melissa Bernstein, checks all of those boxes, you guys. She is the co-founder of the billion-dollar toy brand, Melissa & Doug, and now the founder of the wellness company, Lifelines. And there's more. Her upcoming book, The Heart of Entrepreneurship, is a roadmap for visionary creatives who want to bring something new in the world without losing themselves in the process. So my understanding is that this beautiful new book that you have coming out comes from the fact that, among all your other things, teaching at Duke University in their MBA program around business. Take us into that, maybe. That might be a good starting place, is, your own personal story and how it evolved into sharing your knowledge.
Sure. So actually at Duke, I mentor entrepreneurs, and Doug and I have had an accelerator since 2013 called Melissa & Doug Entrepreneurs. So that's actually what I do there. And I think I saw so many people who had good ideas, but were so terrified of failure in starting them that they, there's a quote that is, you die with song still inside you. I feel like there's so many people who are terrified to bring their true, authentic essence out to the world. So that started to happen. And then others had so much confidence about their ideas on the other extreme that they sort of had an idea, didn't vet it, didn't try it out with their target market, and kind of raced to the finish line, putting out products and services that didn't serve anyone at all other than themselves, and really didn't realize it until it was too late. So I think I started to see these two extremes and realized through our own hard-fought lessons over 35 years that we could really help these folks, and hopefully if they listen to us, really help them sort of on their path to entrepreneurship.
That's amazing. Okay. Well, so let's start there. Let's go to category one. Somebody tuning into this who has ideas about things that they believe would bring value to the world, that are congruent with their personal mission, and they're thinking of starting a business. That can be paralyzing in itself, right? Based on what you've learned through your own life experience and through mentoring others, where do we even begin with that?
It's a great question. And I think one of the reasons most new ventures fail is a rush mentality and trying to race from idea to the finished product. So I would say, everything should start with that blank slate of unknowing and a rabid curiosity. So if there's something you feel is resonating with you, an area, a topic, a discipline, learn everything you can about it. Before you think about starting a business and turning it into a business, I would just immerse yourself in it to the point where literally, like, you learn everything there is to learn. And what's going to happen is, with a lot of those things you thought you were interested in, you're going to get really bored of it as you start to learn more. And you're going to realize, I actually am not that interested in it. It's not that much fun. Other things And I call it like they sink their teeth into you so tightly that you can't extricate them no matter what you do. Others, you're going to start to learn more about it. And the more you learn, oh my gosh, the more obsessed you're going to become about learning more. It's called a crystallizing experience. It's a term coined by this Harvard professor, Howard Gardner. And it's when an experience or a thing or a person like hits you to such a degree that your life will forever be changed. And on certain topics that have been my topics, when I start to learn more, it's like my mind is blown. And I keep saying, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, this is unreal. And the more I learn, the more it's like unraveling a ball of yarn, and just it becomes more and more beautiful. So that's really where you need to start before you do anything close to thinking of starting a business.
Wow. Okay. My mind has been just a little bit blown. I have never heard anybody articulate this in the way that you just have, but so I am an entrepreneur. I started a practice 20 years ago, and I had that experience. But until you just said that, I never realized that I did. Just encountering this idea of therapy and personal development and what it really takes. And I feel like I just was like, oh, and I am still so fascinated by it all this time later. It's still endlessly obsessing about it and how can we expand and develop and keep going. And I never understood that was actually one of the ingredients in the entrepreneurship.
Well, to use the metaphor of ingredients, what you start to do is you collect your ingredients of that domain, that discipline, and you start to put them in the pantry in your mind. And what happens is ultimately, if you learn enough about this domain, and with Melissa and Doug, it started for me with wooden toys. And I determined that I was going to learn everything there was to learn about wooden toys since the beginning of time. I wasn't even thinking necessarily of making wooden toys. I just became obsessed with this really weird niche domain of wooden toys. And the more I learned, the more fascinated I became, because I realized that all these play patterns were the same and had started hundreds of years ago, but with really kind of dull, boring, rudimentary toys. But ultimately, what happens if you collect enough ingredients and you allow those ingredients, this is the second step of it, to settle into your subconscious and begin to simmer like a delectable stew, what will happen is you will start to have epiphanies about that domain, and you will start to see it very clearly in what the gaps are, right? What's needed to be invented to fill out that domain. And that's when this idea takes hold of you versus the domain interest. And only then, in my humble opinion, only when a mission takes hold of you in such a big way and if you think you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to keep saying, no, I don't want to do this, because it's so punishing and so challenging and will knock you down many times each day for decades.
Oh, you're making me cry here, Melissa. Woo! Feeling seen.
It's only when that mission is so compelling and you're impelled from within to bring it to fruition that you can even begin to say, maybe I should turn this into something more. And it literally has to be to that degree to sustain you through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. Because if it's anything short of that, if it's just a whim, like, maybe I'll start a massage practice, or I'll start a deli, or you'll never make it, because you'll be knocked down so many times that vision will dim. It won't be that powerful, and you won't feel impelled from within to bring it to life.
Wow. This is powerful stuff, Melissa.
Well,
And I really appreciate you saying this out loud, because I think that what you're describing is lived experience of the entrepreneurs that I know, certainly, is that there are many easier ways to make a living, first of all.
I
But
tell
it's
many
like,
people that they're not cut out for entrepreneurship. I'm brutally honest.
yeah,
And I'll say, maybe you want to work in a startup. Maybe it doesn't mean you can't work in something entrepreneurial.
yeah,
But in terms of starting it on your own, I'll say, I don't quite think you're ready. I think you need some more lived experience, or I think you need more ingredients to collect and put in your pantry, in your imagination. And you're still lacking some key ingredients, and you're not ready. Like, the recipe is not ready to be served to humanity yet. So I think, and I've been fortunate, I've been bit by that mission bug twice, only twice. I mean, a couple other times, I guess, with like frameworks I've created, but in terms of like an actual business, twice. And it's been so powerful that, it's sustained me for 35 years at Melissa and Doug. And I know the mission at Lifelines is equally, if not more profound for me. And I could see, being sustained by that for the rest of my days now. So I think anything short of that there's not a chance I would have been able to continue it after some of the things we went through.
Okay. I hope this is okay to ask. If
Anything,
it isn't, we'll edit this out. But I mean, I guess semi-personal question. I'm curious to know what some of the things that you experienced in your own path that, had you not been in the grips of this passion, almost would have knocked you off course, and maybe translating it to people who are considering entrepreneurship. And everybody's story is different, but the things that people do experience that will derail them if they're not connected to a power greater than themselves, so to speak.
So I would honestly have to turn it around and say, what didn't happen? Literally everything from our factories copying us and coming to the same trade shows with our exact copyrighted products. Employees exploiting us and doing not great things. What else? Typhoons, fires at our factories, quality issues that were unforeseen that had us having to take back entire shipments, customers going out of business and not paying us, customers copying our products, good customers, and we couldn't really take action because they were some of our best customers, yet they were copying our ideas. There is nothing that we didn't go through. So, but the fascinating thing is, at the beginning, when these things happened, we thought everyone signaled our end, our demise. We were like, oh, here we go. This is the one. And we would start facing them squarely head on, and, at big cost, getting over them, shipments not arriving in time, having to airship things in to angry customers that had them in catalogs. I mean, you name it, it happened. Honestly, every single thing happened. There isn't anything you could even say, I think, that didn't happen. But what started to happen is, as we got over one at a time and learned from it and sort of made the appropriate changes to sort of try to ensure it didn't happen again, we learned that it separated us even further from the people sort of clamoring at our heels below us. And then we started to change. Instead of saying what is happening, what might happen, we said, no, what will be our challenges this year? We realized that they're going to continue to happen. There's actually never going to be a time, and there wasn't, 35 years, still happening with Lifelines. Every day there's something new, but it's new. It's usually not something that we experienced, or if we did, we've learned enough that we handle it in a different way. So, and we realized that we can face these things. Like, they're not easy, they're painful, but we have the tools to surmount them. And with every one we surmount, we separate us further from the competition. So it was a mindset shift, and it was kind of like empowering. After a while, we were sort of like, okay, we are gonna, we're committed to doing this. These blows are tough, but we're gonna get over them.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is amazing. And I think so important for people to be hearing if they're considering entrepreneurship. I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the work of Carol Dweck. She talks a lot about growth mindset and how all of these setbacks, so to speak, or difficulties, it turned into an upward spiral where you used every one of them to think about, okay, what do we need to do differently next time? What did we learn? And that helped you grow and develop a stronger business. But I think it's also so significant what you just said there at the end, which is this is the experience of entrepreneurship. This idea that you're gonna get through it and it's gonna be like blue calm waters and sailing straight ahead. Like that is not actually part of this. And I'm curious if that's one of the things that as you're talking to somebody who's thinking about doing their own thing, you might be listening for as a mentor. Like, would this person be okay sort of sailing through one storm after another, as opposed to this desire to have things be calm and like easy?
Exactly.
Is that okay? Tell me more.
It's a resilience mindset and a resilience that is innate in someone that makes it clear whether they'll be a successful entrepreneur or not, because it has to be someone who almost loves those challenges and is like, bring it on. Here's the next one. I can do this. And part of it is who you partner with too, right? So I was a very scared, weak entrepreneur at the beginning, a very cup half empty. And because, thank goodness, I was with Doug, he was a very cup half full. And at the beginning, I was the doomist. I was always like, see, there you go. This is going to be it. And he would be like, no, we can overcome this. And through him and through his sort of optimism, I would say, and willingness to confront problems head on and solve them, I learned it through him. Now I would say I'm very much that mindset. After about a decade, I sort of came over to the more optimistic side, but I can know right away. I can talk to an entrepreneur for maybe 30 minutes and know right away whether they have the right makeup to make it or not. Doesn't mean their idea, the idea is still part of it, but I can tell from their temperament whether they need a partner or whether they have the capacity to do it on their own.
Oh, that is fascinating. And I love the way you're separating this. Like, it's not the business idea. The business idea could be a good idea. And it's really like, who is this person? So, okay. And I'm sure that you go into all of this in extensive detail in your book, The Heart of Entrepreneurship. But I wonder if you could give us just a little taste of some of the things that you would be indexing in these conversations as you're thinking about, does this person have what it takes?
Yeah, I think definitely it's the ability to focus. So I would say one of the, I call it the 3 Ps: passion, patience, and purpose. And those are the heart of entrepreneurship. 1, do you have something that you are so passionate about that you are willing to go through what you will go through to bring it out into the world? And that's super, super important. Sometimes I talk to someone and I say, tell me about what you're doing, and they can't even articulate it. And I mean, this is very common, like 80% of the time. And if someone can't sort of distill down what they're doing into a very pithy, passionate statement, that's a problem, because, sales is key to your venture, and you as the steward of your venture are going to need to be, telling everyone how amazing it is. So if you can't even convince me how great it is, then you're in trouble. So I see that a lot, and I will say to them right then and there, I'll say, wow, I'm not convinced. Like, you might have it somewhere in there, but you need to figure out like what your reason for being is. And that's called a mission statement, right? your mission statement is kind of what you are doing every day. Your vision statement is your ultimate vision, like how you will impact humanity. And I really want to hear both. I want to hear like what your grand statement is, but also like what are you doing each day? Like how are you sort of making those steps forward and impacting people each day? So that is very important. That's the passion.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose, which I'll say, because that's sort of connected to passion, is why you're doing it. Because a lot of people don't convince me on the purpose at all. They'll say, well, my parents said I should do this, or, I think if I go, like, this is a $3 billion market, and I think if I go into that market, like, I could get a big chunk. And that's not a money, like ego purpose, extrinsic purpose is not going to sustain you down that road of entrepreneurship. It has to be soul purpose. Like I want to hear that they are doing something to touch individuals, even just one.
Yeah.
And because otherwise, if you're doing it for money, all the decisions you make will be flawed. They will not be in the interest of creating a legacy brand. And I see that time and time again. And when you're making decisions for the wrong reasons, which are financial always, it doesn't build a quality brand and product. So that's sort of, I want to see that the purpose is really like genuine and authentic. And most time I don't see that. And then patience is the real key. Somewhat because Melissa and Doug, we were there for 35 years. And I don't think we started humming for at least 5. And it was 10, close to 10 until we started feeling like, okay, we got some traction here. And Doug and I never thought about leaving. We thought we were going to create this legacy brand that lasts forever. And I think that's the attitude you have to have, that you love the journey, not the destination. It's you love doing what you're doing. And, many call it being in the verb. Like I love creating every single toy. I don't really care about the shelf space and how much it sells. Like I love the act of creating so much that every day is joyful. And I want to hear that whoever's doing this business, like loves the verb of what they're doing and their sweet spot, their gift so much that 20 years from now, they're going to feel the same way. If they're just doing it to arrive, and I'm sure you've heard the term arrival fallacy, it's that's a myth, right? You think like, oh, I got to get there, and you're racing and racing to get there. And then you get there and you feel this incredible emptiness, because the truth is the meaning is in the journey, not the destination. So I think for me, I need to see they verbally talk about their venture in a way that I know that they have the patience to care about all the little things, and that's more important to them than getting to this like valuation and what they're going to sell for. And you can hear it pretty easily. It doesn't mean 100%, but I would say with 90%, sort of 90% accuracy, I can tell you the people who are going to, have that right behavioral characteristics and mindset to make it.
Wow. This is just fascinating to hear you talk about, especially somebody with your experience and your point of view, because I think so much related to business education is on the mechanics, right? There's marketing and finance and operations and all these different things. But what you're talking about is coming into it almost on I mean, you're not saying this, but this deeply personal, powerful, almost spiritual type level. Like, who are you? This higher purpose. Are you on fire? Can you articulate this in a way other people can understand? And can you stay in this through thick and thin, no matter what, because of your love of the journey, as opposed to a math equation, which
It's
I
the
think that,
extrinsic versus the
yeah,
intrinsic. And to
yeah.
create inspired products,
Mm-hmm.
which, I think the biggest compliment I would ever get at Melissa and Doug was that,
Hmm.
like, your products feel like I can tell that you're in them.
Yeah.
And I'll get emotional, but like, I put a heartbeat and a soul in everything I created because it's truly an extension of me. And I think I'm looking for inspired
Yeah.
people who create inspiring businesses, and that's the heart.
Mm.
That's the point of the heart of entrepreneurship, is it's coming from your heart, not your head.
Yeah.
And it's easy to contrive a business, sort of easy on paper, but the truth is those aren't the businesses that stand the test of time. And the heart, to me, is all that really matters, because if you have that, then you're going to create what I call a product that people are clamoring to purchase.
Mm.
So there's so many Me Too products out there. There's so many replications. There's so many people that I see their stuff and I'm like, I'm confused. Why are you doing this? Like, there are a million of those out there. And they're sort of like, they can't give me a good answer. They didn't do their homework. They didn't research. Again, they didn't rapidly understand what they were doing, or they would have seen that they're creating a replication. That's the point. They're
Yeah.
not really invested in it in the right way. And you can
Yeah.
see this with musicians. You can see it with authors,
Mm.
right? Those musicians, like Bruce Springsteen and Mick Jagger, like, they love doing it today as much as they loved doing it. They're not doing it for the money. They're doing it because their soul needs to do it.
Yeah.
So it's a very different inspired mentality versus an ego mentality.
Oh my goodness. Well, for those of our friends who are with us right now, who are tuned in because they've been thinking idly about starting a business as a way of having more freedom, having more work-life balance, having more money, and thinking about, working stuff out on a spreadsheet. And, if I bought this car wash, like XYZ, here's what the revenue and the profitability in 3 years. And okay, so what do you say to people who are considering business opportunities really from that mathematical, mechanical, if I invest this much money, then my return on investment in 3 to 5 years would be XYZ? Because those people are around, right? Do you say, like, don't even try? Or is there like a place in the world for people who are very much like, well, I think we consider could as conventionally business minded?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that I think can be um, the way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole class of
Yeah.
entrepreneurship by acquisition, right? Where
Mm.
you can buy a business or buy into a business and sort of just look on paper and see
Yeah.
it work. And that's perfectly fine and well for people where they don't need it to be a soul
Yeah.
exercise, right?
Yeah.
But, I'm coming from the aspect of meaning, right?
Yeah.
I have had a tremendous meaning crisis my whole life, and really need to be connected to meaning and doing things that really are serving humanity in an impactful way, and that I'm part of connecting myself to that greater good.
Yeah.
So I think when I speak about it, I'm really speaking about sort of an authentic expression of
Mm-hmm.
yourself from your soul, even if it is entrepreneurship by acquisition. I'm not saying that it has to be some creative idea that no one's ever come up with, but you can make anything that exists original by your unique take on it. So there's very different between innovative and original. Original becomes yours just because you're doing it. So you can acquire something by acquisition and still be completely inspired to make it your own, and make it your own really beautifully. So I think I would have to know the person. I would have to know, are they someone who's even connected to their soul, or are they entirely ego, and no matter what they do, they're going to do it from the ego, so they might as well do this from the ego and from financial modeling as well? Or are they someone who is desperately looking for a soul connection and is thinking this is going to do it. But because they're pursuing it entirely in an egoic manner, they're going to miss that potential connection to their soul. So they all could work. And it really depends, a connection to meaning and soul and essence is somewhat genetic and somewhat behavioral characteristics that you're born with. So some of us have more on that spectrum of needing that. Yeah. And others are more on the spectrum of like, they could do any job and it's just serving a, what's a financial role and paying the bills and that type of thing. So I think it really would depend. But for me, when I mentor, and I would say my mentees that I've been with now for 15 years, many of my M&D entrepreneurs, like I stay with them their whole lives. They are from the soul. The ones that I resonate with most are soul entrepreneurs that are doing it to transcend themselves and connect to something greater. So that's where it really becomes a spiritual act for me. And I think very meaningful in that. Did that answer your question?
It does. And I mean, I hear you say that there are different flavors of earthlings, obviously. And so, not everybody's jib is cut the same way, so to speak, but that when you are working with entrepreneurs who you really see as developing something enduring and important, these are the qualities they bring into it. And that there is a place in the world for people who are coming into business, maybe with more of an investment mindset, but it's a different type of thing. And that might also be one of the takeaways for people who are tuning into this, who've been considering starting a business, is just to do some soul searching around what is meaningful to me and what is my why? Like, what is appealing to me about the thought of even doing this? And so what do you say to people, Melissa, who are imagining that running their own business might be easier, more pleasurable, or more lucrative than having a job?
Yeah. I mean, I would say don't do it for any of those reasons.
It
could end up being, but if you're doing it because of that, that's the wrong way to do it. That's why you have to me, it has to start with a pull from something deeper than that, because all those three things will definitely not be the case.
That is not what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not what's going to happen. And you can get your fulfillment through things you do outside of work. Like many people, I suggest work a conventional job. And if you feel this need to give, even entrepreneurially, do it through volunteerism. Offer if you're a therapist, and you were thinking of starting your own business and your practice isn't giving you enough, then on the weekends, go to a Boys and Girls Club and offer your services, or, do something that can give you that. You have to really, again, I'm a meaning coach. So if I were working, and I do it for free, I don't get paid, but if I were trying to understand someone, you have to understand what someone is seeking. Right? You can't answer these questions like broadly. It's like, what is missing in your life and what are you looking to achieve from this?
Right.
And I think if it's things like freedom and stability, that I would definitely say you need to think twice on, because we didn't have freedom. We didn't go away for 2 decades, literally. We were working 24/7, Doug and I. So, there's, but then again, I'm sure we could have done it more, maybe not as obsessively. I don't know, but I don't think it would have made it. Yeah. So, I think I would need to know someone's values and their goals and see if this is a way to achieve those and their time frame. Right? Do they have this rush mentality where they're like, well, within 2 years, I need to be making X or Y? Then I would say, you know what? I don't think you can depend on that.
Right. This is so interesting. And again, you guys, Melissa has written an entire book on this topic. And so check out The Heart of Entrepreneurship for a deeper dive into all of these ideas. But my takeaway from what you're saying right now, Melissa, is that if you are considering starting a business or going into entrepreneurship as like moving away from something that you don't like if that is your motivation, is you're trying to avoid something, that is not the right reason. That you really need to be moving towards something that feels really exciting, and trying to change life circumstances in a material way, particularly on a short time frame, is that you need to dig more deeply into that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I would say either try to reframe what you're doing to at least make it tolerable. And in the interim, start to follow your curiosity and start to really look for things that light you up, and then dive into them and start to learn more about them and see if something in them excites you. And one of the things I really stress, I call it, because you're gathering ingredients of life experience and you're building your pantry and your imagination of life experience, because that is what leads to amazing products and services. But I call it be an indiscriminate gatherer, meaning we judge everything so much. Let's say we like something really obscure. I don't know. We like plants, right? We're obsessed with botany. Generally people will say, well, I'm not going to pursue that because that's not going to lead to like a cool venture. Like I got to be focused on things that could be more like, more financially viable, right? More practical. But that is the absolute worst mentality to have. The truth is anything that you become an expert in could lead to a really lucrative career. I mean, Doug and I created wooden toys. And back in the late 1980s, if you told people that we were going to, have $1 billion company making wooden toys and other, classic toy categories, people would have they would have laughed you out of the room. So the point is, because we did something that we were passionate about and we loved, and we didn't have a time frame on it, and we made every detail perfect, and we never thought about money. In fact, we charged people too low, and we did it on consignment. Like we did everything the right way. Even though we made every mistake in the book, it ended up building this really stable company. And I think that's what is important. Following what intrigues you and knowing that if you become, look at Darwin, right? He collected beetles and he did all these crazy things, and it led to these incredible, epiphanies. So that's really the point. I think we put too much emphasis on sort of what it is and judging. And because of that, we end up going down all these paths that aren't really our passions.
What good advice that we can be closed to new experiences that could be very nourishing and meaningful because of these preconceived ideas of what things should be or whether or not it's pragmatic. And you're saying to allow yourself the freedom to be open to new experiences and to run a business in a way that makes sense to you, given your meaning, your values, your purpose, and that's really the path forward. So there's
all the most prolific creatives. I studied creativity since the beginning of time. All the most prolific creatives, they were what was called polymaths. They were experts in a whole bunch of really weird areas. And ultimately, those ingredients from becoming an expert at so many diverse things combined into epiphanies in totally different areas. So sometimes, I'll be in a farmer's market, and I'll see something with food that totally would make me think of a toy. So the point is, if you are open to experience, which is the number one behavioral trait of an entrepreneur.
No kidding. Seriously? I
Yeah,
didn't know
it's
that.
the behavioral trait of the big
Huh.
five that's most
Yeah, yeah.
conducive to entrepreneurial mindset and thinking, open to experience. It means that you have the capacity to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. And you are willing to basically clean your slate of what has been every single night and start the day with beginner's mind and completely a blank palette of unknowing, which takes suspending ego and is very hard for egoic people. So this ability to look at things with fresh eyes. And, one of my favorite Marcel Proust quotes is the voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. So the point is that to sort of leave your ego at the door and start really following things that interest you. And ultimately, even if you don't know where it's taking you, that's the point. The journey of discovery is not knowing where it will end, but knowing that if you become so expert and passionate about it, trust me, it's going to lead to you saying, oh my gosh, I could create a product here. And I've seen it so many times. Two of my kids are entrepreneurs, and they both of their ideas, which are really successful, were random things based on their life experience in random, weird categories.
That's
So,
incredible.
yes. And it was because they followed their passion in weird areas, odd, not mainstream, and they led to really cool businesses.
Gosh, so much fantastic advice. But I just want to speak on behalf of all the entrepreneurs who might be listening to this or people considering it, just how affirming this point of view is. Because I think that for many creative people and people who get excited and see possibilities and are open to new experiences and kind of absorbing it all and getting passionate and excited about things, I think that there can sometimes, and I speak like from my personal experience, this meta message in the culture when, people like us run into real business people who want to talk about operations and finance and all of these things. And that there really needs to be that energy in a life-giving, exciting, like growing organization, and not to diminish the importance of like a CFO, something of that nature, but somebody really looking at this from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that many people with the traits that you are describing have often been made by our culture to feel a little bit bad about being that way. Has that been your experience with this?
Oh, yes, it has. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I think I'm really clear about when you are that creative, making sure that your vision is entirely built out and very clear before you bring it out to the world and those financial types. Because what also happens with creative visionaries is they're insecure about their ideas and they share them with others too early. And then these very pragmatic types, usually their parents or family members or their partner who are very nervous, will immediately cut them down, right? And say, well, that doesn't make sense. Why are you doing that? No, you need to change this. And of course, they're trying to change it into what is familiar to them. And a creative is thinking completely out of the box and creating new things that people don't even know they need. So what I've learned being that white space creative is, for me, if I share, and this has been a hard fought thing, that's why I can speak to creatives so well. If when I used to share my ideas so too early, they would get completely adulterated. I would forget what my unique vision was because I'd want to please the other people then who were telling me it needed to change. And ultimately the product would fail because it was no vision. It was like a neutralized vision of what already existed. So I learned that as a creative, it's very important to bring my unique perspective to the world. Now, there's a point at which when you can hand your service or product to your target market, that you desperately want their feedback and need their feedback to hone it, right? To tweak it to become perfect. But until then, you must keep it quiet and to yourself. And that for me has been probably the best personal advice I've ever listened to on my own. And now I never bring anything forward until it's rounded out enough that I feel clearly that I see the ultimate vision.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
then when people try to change it, I can say no or yes, but I have such a clear sense of where it needs to go that I can strongly listen to my intuition and say yes, no. Yeah. If my intuition isn't speaking clearly enough, then it gets completely lost.
That's amazing. These ideas, these opportunities, they're, especially when they're brand new, they're fragile. And it's almost like they need to be connected to you, like an energetic umbilical cord. And if it's like goes out into the world too soon, it gets disconnected.
It's so true.
Yeah, that's but to be able to like gestate almost.
Yes.
Okay, going into pregnancy metaphors now, but like that's really what it's like. But I think what you're telling people that have this ability, this talent, this gift, is to recognize that gift and understand that these ideas really need that power from
incubation.
You, right? And to have respect for and appreciation of that process and your own ability to cultivate these ideas and to develop the ability to understand like when they are strong enough to be able to start
it's that exact point at when
I get it.
They still need input. Don't get me wrong. I'm never bringing my ideas straight out to the world without testing it with my target market. And they get a lot of changes then, but I have to feel confident enough in it, because think about it. If you as a creative are a visionary, if you bring a visionary idea to people who aren't ready for it before it's time, what are they going to do? They're going to laugh at you. They're going to shoot you down. I mean, most artists and poets, they only achieved acclaim posthumously, after their deaths. And the reason is because a lot of what they did was before their time. And at Melissa and Doug, I had this wall that I called sort of my wall of shame, or the land of forgotten toys, where I put my favorite failures. And over the years, I had over 800 products back there. I had so many toys back there, I couldn't even find them. But something really fascinating happened over 3 decades. At least over 20 times, maybe more. Something that didn't work in 1 decade that I put on the back shelf, a decade later, I brought it back and it became one of our best sellers.
Really?
So what I learned is something like mind blowing, which was, it wasn't a failure. It was just before its time. So which I did, brought that out to the world was like, this is awful. We don't want this. We're not going to buy this. But it wasn't a failure. It was just pre the time that it was right. And, a couple of those products are still in the Melissa and Doug bestsellers that came back, were recycled a decade later. So there are many reasons why something doesn't work, and it's rarely as black and white as success and failure. So I think for a creative, it's very important to hone that intuition and feel that sense of like what's right and wrong, and follow it until, you're confident enough to be able to give it to someone, knowing then you'll be able to be okay with whatever they say and keep the DNA of what you created and just tweak it, in little ways to become more of what the target market is looking for.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So empowering. I mean, everything about this conversation has been so empowering, but also so clear. And, I'm just thinking about our friends right now who have been tuning into this conversation. They've had a dream in the back of their minds, like, should I try this thing? What am I doing? And I would imagine that just listening to your perspective and the things that you've been talking about have helped clarify for them, where is this really coming from in me? It's also, I think, clarified or maybe created more like reality-based ideas about what I would be getting myself into, but even about the process ahead. Like if you do venture forth, the type of energy and vision and patience and persistence and belief and passion that it is going to take from you in order to bring things into the world and have them be received by other people, either now, potentially later. And so I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing this perspective with our community and also sharing so much of your personal story. It's been fascinating. And I'm already making a list of all my entrepreneur friends who are going to be getting the link to this podcast.
That's amazing. Well, I'm Melissa at lifelines.com, and I'd love to talk to anyone who is thinking about these things. It's really rewarding, but it just involves knowing what you're getting into and that it's not going to be the well-traveled path. And as long as your eyes are wide open, I mean, I did it a second time, which I said I would never do. So it has to be somewhat fulfilling. So don't think this is just telling everyone don't do it. It's just do it with your eyes wide open and you'll be just fine.
So really briefly, before we wrap up, so you mentioned where people can learn more about you, other ways to connect with you, and of course, your new book, The Heart of Entrepreneurship. Are there other resources or things that people can connect with you around to support them on this journey?
That's a great question. I mean, I would encourage them to reach out to like startup entrepreneurial groups in wherever they're living. I know my daughter, who's a young entrepreneur, and sure, she can talk to us, but we're older and
it's
she
different.
Wants people her age.
That's right.
There's tons of startup culture in local cities, and I would encourage that. She's found it really great for her.
Amazing.
So, but you can reach out, you can certainly reach out to me with any specific advice. I'm always incredible. Thrilled to offer that.
So generous. Well, Melissa, thank you again so much for your time today on behalf of our community. And thank you for sharing your story. And maybe we'll have a chance to talk again.
Thank you for building such an amazing community and having me on. I really appreciate it, Lisa.